You know, we travel all over the country these days and also into Canada, and we've taught thousands of people how to make tremendous amounts of money with abandoned properties, and you know it's working extremely well because we're getting letters and faxes and phone calls from people from all over who are telling us about the effect that what we taught them is having on their lives, very positive effect. But I got to tell you, though, that we're still running across people that are having trouble finding good, profitable deals on a consistent basis. And I'm not talking about banging your head against the wall to make an extra $3,000, $4,000, or $5,000. That's not what we're going to talk about here. I'm sure you would not mind having an extra $30,000, $40,000, or $50,000 deal on your desk within the next 30 days, and that's what we're going to talk about. Now, some of the profits that we discussed are going to be some pretty substantial profits. And you see, there's a couple reasons for it, and I want to share one of those with you. It's what we call the perfect storm for investing in abandoned properties. Let me explain. You see, we've had a bit of a run-up in foreclosures over the last few years, and what that's doing, you see, all those foreclosures are not being worked on. Many of those foreclosures are filtering straight through the foreclosure market down into an already strong and already robust abandoned property market. And so what I'm saying is that the foreclosure market is actually feeding the abandoned property market. That's very, very substantial. Here's the third leg. The second leg is this, that many times these owners would love to sell these properties, but they realize that the banks are just not lending on these properties now, so what they have to do is they have to become the bank. They have to participate in owner financing. And most of the times, many, many times, with owner financing, you don't need money, you don't need credit, and you don't need a job. What you need is the knowledge of how to write the contract up, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well as we move forward. And then the third and final leg of the perfect storm is this, is that there's very little competition. Most people are working some level of foreclosure, you know, trustee sales, defaults, or short sales, REOs, but very, very few people are working a systematic and scientific method of converting these abandoned properties into cash. And so that's what we'll talk about during this session. Now, many times people come up to me and they say, Reggie, I understand all about abandoned properties, just like a foreclosure, right? And I have to say, no, it's not just like a foreclosure. Here is a very significant difference. With a foreclosure, you may have had a family that's been living in this home for 10, 12, 15 years. And because of certain family events that cause them to have an emotional attachment, they hold on to that house so dear. They've had things with an idea that can get them out of the foreclosure situation that they're in and put a little money in your pocket. You know what they want to do? They want to squeeze every drop of equity that they possibly can out of that foreclosure because of the emotional attachment. However, with an abandoned property, there is no emotional attachment. And if they don't research America, there are a lot of people own their properties free and clear, much more than you would think. But if that's the case, they still have to pay taxes and insurance, don't they? And so they love to generate some money from that property, so they might have called all the realtors and said, Mr. Realtor, come on over and list my property for me, and when you sell it, I'll pay you a nice commission. Well, if you're a realtor and you get a call like that, sure, you'll get a little excited, and you might jump in your car, and I know some that would break every speed limit in the city to get over to that property. When they do, their jaw drops a little bit because the property needs some degree of work. So now, as a realtor, you're going to have to tell that owner, Mr. Johnson, I'm afraid you're going to have to spend some money here. You're going to have to fix this property up. And when you get it fixed up, give me a call back at that time, and I'll come list the property, sell it, and your headache will be over. Now, that is a problem for Mr. Johnson. You see, he may not have the money to fix that property up. And so, therefore, another 30 days rolls around, and another mortgage has to be paid. So what we're going to talk about is how abandoned properties lend themselves so extremely well to high profits and also to owner financing. And we'll talk about both of those elements as we proceed. But for now, I think I better take just a moment and give you my very brief bio and kind of give you an idea of who I am. My name is Reggie Brooks, and I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California, raised by a single mom. Now, she did a great job, but she needed financial help. So I did something that was kind of dumb. I thought it was smart at the time. I was in the 11th grade, 17 years old, and I dropped out of high school. The purpose was to go out and get myself a job, and I did. I got a whole bunch of dead-end jobs, worked as a service station attendant, a welder, machinist, mechanic, and I didn't care how hard the work was. That didn't matter. As long as I could make a good, honest paycheck, bring the money home, and help out with the finances. And then I got a lucky break. I got a job at the local phone company in L.A. Lucky because, see, I got in under the radar. They didn't know I hadn't graduated from high school, and I wasn't talking. They were not going to hear that from me. So I stayed on that job for 18 years. I worked myself up to making $3,000 a month. Whoopee. Wasn't enough. I had a whole lot of month left at the end of my money. I couldn't pay my bills. My car was breaking down on me all the time. I needed help. I really, really needed a change in my life. I was committed to getting a change in my life. And, you know, wonderful things happen when you commit to doing something for yourself. Wonderful doors open up for you and opportunities present themselves. I came home one evening, and I turned on the TV, and this infomercial comes on. And the man on the infomercial says, hey, come on down to my real estate seminar, and I'm going to teach you how to make more money in your spare time than you can make on a full-time job. And don't you know, I got excited because that's exactly what I needed, some way to make money. I didn't want to give up my job, but I was interested in making some money here. And so I waited and waited for that day of the day of that seminar to come along, and the day finally came along. Do you know, I got sick, and I couldn't go to work, so I went to the seminar instead. And I'm so glad I did, because it was a 3-day seminar. I went and I sat there and I listened and I learned about things about money that I'd never heard before, how to make it and how to keep it, and more importantly, how to make my money work hard for me instead of me working hard for it. And I want to teach you how to do that as well. Have your money working hard for you instead of you working hard for it. But I became a sponge for knowledge in those early days. I read everybody's books. I listened to everybody's tapes. I took seminars and workshops and boot camps, and I did another thing that most other people weren't doing. I actually took action. I actually put it to use, and it worked out real well. The very first property that we bought, and when I say we, I'm talking about my wife and myself, this was 2 houses on a lot. See, one of the early things that we learned how to structure a deal so that once all the dust settled, we'd actually put money in our pockets rather than taking money out, and it worked out really well. So we fixed that house up, those 2 houses up, and rented them out, and now we've got a little cash flow coming in, and at the end of the month, there's a little cash flow left over instead of it being the other way around, and that felt really good. Now, the next property that we found, and this one really got us over the hill, this was a 4-unit building, and we bought it under similar circumstances, fixed up those units, rented them out, and now, man, all of a sudden we have cash flow coming in every single month, whether we work or not, and that was so exciting because now we could afford to pay our bills. Not only that, we could afford some of the luxuries in life. So our income, the ceiling on our income was raising, and there was a light at the end of the tunnel, and it didn't look like a freight train, so we're going forward. Now, this next property that I want to share with you, this one really changed our lives. And I want you to really take note of this because I want it to have a positive effect on your life as well. One of the most important things you can do is to learn creative financing. Learn how to think creatively. We had found a nice 16-unit building, but it had a couple problems. One of them was that it had 11 vacancies. And that's not all. Of the 5 that were occupying the units, 3 of them weren't even paying rent, so we had to evict 3 units on top of it. And I wonder if you would be interested in a nice 16-unit building with effectively 14 vacancies and 3 evictions. You know, in live seminars, when I ask that question, most people say, no, I don't want any part of that. And you see, that's wrong, because we get paid very handsomely by solving sellers' problems. So your job is to take seminars and boot camps and workshops, invest in your education so you can learn the tools that we use to solve the problems. If you don't have the tools, you can't solve the problems. If you can't solve the problems, you can't get paid. Let me give you an example. With this 16-unit building, the owner, here's something I want to share with you. As long as you have willing participants and the creative knowledge to put deals together, you can do deals anytime you want. Willing participants and the creative knowledge to put the deals together. We had willing participants. The owner of this property had a 16-unit building with an alligator on his hands that's eating him alive. No income coming in, yet he has to shell a mortgage payment out every single month. He's a willing participant. The realtor had it listed for $500,000 with a 6% commission. He's $30,000 worth of willingness. He's a willing participant. And yours truly, of course. I knew that as long as I had willing participants, I can understand, I can create a deal here. And so here's the way we did it. We had a meeting between myself, the broker, and the owner. And here's what came out of the meeting. I told those guys that I will go ahead, work on the building, spruce up the outside, fix up the inside, and start renting them out. I'll even start the process of evicting those 3 tenants that need to be evicted. Here's what I need from you, the broker, and you, the owner. I need you guys to handle that mortgage payment for me until I can rent enough units out and get this building turned around. Now, once I get it turned around and I have enough rent coming in that I can pay all the expenses, including the mortgage, and put a little money in my pocket, I'll take over the building at that time. And you know, most people in a live seminar think that they did not like that idea. Very few people think that they would go for an idea like that. But let's examine it a little closer. You see, there's 2 classes of buyers. One class of buyer is a homeowner. He's looking for a home for himself and his family. Is he very likely to buy a 16-unit building, stick his home in 1 unit, and rent the other 15 units out? That's not likely. So you got to scratch him off the list. The other is an investor that has capital, that has cash to invest. He's looking for a return on his investment. And so you got to have income. You got to have cash flow to get a return on your investment. So there's no cash flow there, so the average investor is going to take his money down the street and around the corner and find a building that has tenants and cash flow. So you see their options are very, very, very limited. And because of that fact, we decided to go along with this idea. And we also decided to put together a meeting. Every 30 days, we would come back together and we would have a meeting. And I give them an update and let them know how far along in the process we are. The 3rd month after reaching that agreement, I walked into that meeting, sat down at that table, and you would have been so proud of me. I told them I no longer need your mortgage subsidy. I have now successfully rented out 13 of those 16 units. I now have a positive cash flow after all the bills are paid, including the mortgage, of $3,000 a month coming into my pocket. Can you understand how excited I was? Because you see, I was always hurting for money, but now because of some things that I learned in some seminars and some books that I read and some tapes that I listened to, I now have created financial independence from this one property here, because remember, I was making $3,000 a month at the phone company. Now I'm financially independent from this one property, and I still have 3 units to rent out. And I have 2 other buildings that I've collected. And so now it's time to very seriously think about leaving my job. And that's what the topic of discussion was between my wife and myself for a few weeks. And when we finally decided, I'll never forget the day that I went to work to make my announcement. I called a meeting between myself and my boss, and I fired my boss right on the spot. Told him your services are no longer needed. And so now I've got 30 days before I'm going to be kicked out the front door. I won't have a job anymore. I've been there 18 years. I was making $3,000 a month. I better make sure that this real estate thing is not a fluke. And so I'm searching really, really hard trying to find another deal. And every deal that I found that had any equity in it, had any profit potential in it, all the other investors were on it, and there were so many offers on the property, it would drive the profits down and drive the costs up. And that was just not very sexy to me. One day, you see, I was listening to a tape set, and the man on the tape set said something very simple. He said, tell everyone you know that you invest in real estate. And I said, why not? I'm listening to a multimillionaire here, and I know one of these days I'm going to be that too, so I'm going to do what this man says. I let everybody I know that I'm a real estate investor now. Bring me deals. Bring me stuff that looks like it's run down and overgrown. And I had 2 weeks to go at the phone company before I no longer had that job when I started letting everybody know. 1 week later, I got a call from my cousin Greg. And I want you to know I love my cousin Greg because that one phone call, I've become a multimillionaire. You see, he told me about a property that was located in his neighborhood. He says, come on over, take a look at it, and I sure did. And I'm about to show you the very first abandoned property that we ever invested in life. This one comes from my cousin Greg. 417 South Maie Avenue. As you can see, the grass, some of it was overgrown, some of it needed to be reseeded. All the shrubs were overgrown. The windows are broken out, doors hanging off the hinge. All my kind of property. When I see those kind of properties now, I start salivating because I know I'm going to make money. But I want you to see the numbers on this property, but bear in mind it was the very first abandoned property that we ever invested in. This property had a first mortgage of $19,000, had a second mortgage of $5,000. Now, one of the first things that we learned is how to do our fix-up work efficiently and effectively, because we realize that a lot of people, investors who don't know, they throw money at a rehab project and they throw away a lot of profit. The average person would have spent $15,000 fixing this house up. We did it for less than $7,000. And I'll share with you as we go on some of the techniques that we use to make more profit, because we cut down on our expenses tremendously. And then we gave the seller $10,000. He was happy. So we're $41,000 into this property. We sold this property for $84,000, and we made ourselves a profit of $43,000 on the very first abandoned property that we ever invested in. And you know, that was so exciting because it only took us a couple months, made $43,000. I'd work on my job for 12 months and I'd make $36,000, and I'd have taxes to pay. Now, because I'm in real estate, now I can keep a lot of the money that I make through the IRS code that they allow us, because we're investors, they allow us to keep a lot of the money that we make. And so a light bulb goes on over my wife's and my head, because we realize that we make our money in real estate by buying distressed properties from motivated owners. Now, let me tell you, this property was highly distressed. You saw a picture of it. The owner was highly motivated. Take my word for that, but it lacked the one element that every other strategy that we ever tried to work had. It lacked the competition. You see, nobody knew anything about this property at all. It wasn't listed on the multiple listing service. There were no ads running in the newspapers. There was no sign out in front of the yard. Nobody knew anything about this property at all except my cousin Greg. And because he told me about it, as a result, as I mentioned, we've become multimillionaires. We have 2 kids. We taught them as well. They're grown now, and they too are millionaires, doing exactly what I'm going to share with you in this session. So there's something that I want to bring your attention to. As we all know, and for the last couple of years, we've had a really serious housing downturn. And many of the properties have lost a lot of equity. Some of them have even not just lost a lot of equity, but they're what we call upside down, meaning that the amount that's owed on the property is higher than the value of the property. And so a lot of people will ask, well, Reggie, I know that abandoned properties make a lot of money, but how are you going to find properties that have equity in them? They're all upside down or no equity at all. Well, I want to tell you this. Some of my students are so very creative, and we teach a lot of creative thought, because many times you can create profits where seemingly there are none. I'm about to arm you with a couple of tools that you can use that other people will not have. And so therefore, when you have tools that they don't have, you can do deals that they can't do. I want to share with you one of my students. Here's Chuck. Chuck's one of my students. He does some of these things that I'm going to share with you. First of all, we understand that during this downturn, all of the markets across America were not hit the same way. The California market, the Nevada market, and the Florida market were hit pretty hard. But there were a lot of other markets that remained strong. And so what a lot of my students are doing, so simple. They're running little ads on Craigslist, running a little ad on Backstreet, on the internet. And they're attracting partners in the stronger markets that are bringing them good, profitable, abandoned properties that have strong equity in them. So if you have to give up part of your profit to a partner that brought you the deal, why not? Why not? 10%, 20%, 30%? I'd give them 50%. 50% of something's a lot better than 100% of nothing. We all know that, but that's just one idea. Here's another one. Free and clear properties, as I mentioned, we had done some research, and we found that a little while ago, about 44% of all properties across America were owned free and clear. And then we had this downturn. So it's dropped to about 35%. But 35% of properties owned free and clear. And so here's what happens a lot of times, that the people who used to live in them, they got a little older, they bought their dream home, they moved out, they rented that property out, or maybe some other houses that they have as well. And so they paid them off over the years, they own them free and clear. Because of the economic downturn and people losing their jobs, they may have lost a tenant, and now that tenant can't pay the rent anymore, so the tenant has to move out. But the owner owns it free and clear. So it's not a real pain in the side for him. He can pay the taxes and insurance, but he doesn't have a mortgage to pay, so he just lets it sit there for a while. Now, what my students are doing, they're targeting free and clear properties. And so therefore, these people are a little older, and what are they looking for? They're primarily not looking for a lump sum of cash. They're looking for a steady stream of income. So now my students are approaching them, letting them owner finance the property. They become the bank, and so the student takes over the property, and they pay them monthly while they fix it up and either sell it or fix it up and rent it out. And so that's just another way that we take lemons and we turn them into lemonade. Here's one that Chuck did. Chuck found this property that the owner lived in a different state. And he found this property, and the property needed a little work, and it had a bunch of mortgages against the property. Here's a picture of it. You're looking at it on your screen right now. It had a first mortgage of $127,000, had a second mortgage of $47,000, and had a third mortgage of $29,000. And so that brought the amount owed against the property to $203,000. However, Chuck found out that the value of this property was only $201,000. That means it's upside down by $2,000. So he contacted that owner. And by the way, he also found out that the first mortgage, the $127,000, has the property in foreclosure. So Chuck contacts the owner. And he says, listen, Mr. Owner, I found this property here that you've had first, second, and third mortgages, and it's really upside down. There's no value to the property. And also, I realize that the first is in foreclosure, and so when it foreclosures, you're not going to get anything at all. I'm willing to pay you $200 for your trouble in granting a deed over to me. I'll buy the deed from you for $200. Well, the owner says, no, I don't want to do that. And then old Chuck says, well, listen. He reiterates the fact that it's no equity in the property and the fact that the first is in foreclosure. And he says, I'll give you the $200, and also I have this brand new color TV. I'll go and get it out of storage, and I'll give you that as well. The owner of the property asked Chuck, what size is the screen? So now Chuck is excited because he knows he's got a deal now. So he gave him the $200 and the TV, but he did a very smart thing before he did anything else. He contacted the holder of the second mortgage. And he told that holder, listen, you haven't gotten any payments in a long time. Here's some pictures of the property. It's all run down and nobody wants to rent the property. And chances are you're not going to get any payments because the first is in foreclosure. And when the first forecloses, your second is going to get wiped out. He told the third holder the same thing. Your third is going to get wiped out. Here's what I'd like to do. Mr. Second Holder, if you will reduce the amount owed against your first from $47,000 to $17,000, I will guarantee you this, that when I buy the property and flip it, you will get $17,000. However, if you don't do that, you're going to lose your $47,000. Well, that was a no-brainer to the holder of that note. And he told the third mortgagor, the third holder, the same thing. And the third holder reduced discounted his mortgage down to $10,000. And so now what Chuck has done, Chuck has created the amount owed now against the property is $154,000 rather than $203,000. Chuck just created $47,000 in profit just by making a few phone calls and being smart, doing some smart things. And so that's why I love Chuck. And my students, this is what they're able to do. And this is what I love to teach you, too, as my student as well. But now here's something you might be thinking. Well, okay, I can see that. That's really easy to see. I can create profit where there isn't any with an abandoned property. But how am I going to get the property fixed up? Well, if you've ever used a government program or even heard of government programs, stay tuned, because I'm going to talk about government programs as we go on. But maybe you don't want to use a government program. I'll tell you what Chuck did, and you can do the same thing. You can run a little ad to rehab your property. And in that ad, you can say something like this: $20,000 needed for real estate rehab project. 20% return on your money. You're going to offer them 20% return. And then you also add the phrase, your money is secured by the real estate. In other words, if you don't pay them, they get to take the property. And so now you're going to get a mountain of calls because the average person is only earning 1 to 2% in the bank. Sure, people have a lot of money. A lot of people have a lot of money, but they don't know how to make it earn any more than, say, 3% in a money market account. You're offering 20% return on your money. And so you're going to get that money. You're going to get a lot of phone calls. So what you do is you build a base of people who have money that don't mind making 20% return. So let's say you borrow that 20%. Now you find yourself a nice little bargain property. You have a payback of $24,000 now because you're going to pay them 20% return on that $20,000. Now let's jump ahead just a little bit. You find a nice bargain property. Oh, let's back up just a little bit. Okay, we're going to talk about the bargain property a little bit later. I'm getting ahead of myself here. But so what I want want to show you is that you have now all the rehab money that you need to do that rehab job, and it only cost you $4,000. You gave him a 20% return on his money. Now think about this. You're going to do, most of my students, they do deals within 2 months. So let's say you took 6 months to do this deal, and you turned it around and you paid him his 20% in 6 months. You annualize that over a year, you're giving him a 40% return on his investment. Now, who's not going to be out on the golf course with a lot of friends, because we know birds of a feather stick together? He's on the golf course with all his buddies saying, yeah, I just got a 40% return on my money. All of a sudden, everybody else wants to get in on the game. They want a 40% return also. You will have more money than you know what to do with to do your rehabs. All you have to do is make a phone call to get it done. And that's how simple it is to make money in America. It's nothing difficult about making money. It's just that when you don't know when you don't have the tools, you can't create what the tools create. So you got to get the tools. Simple as that. So abandoned property is a unique marketing niche. That's what it is. All across America, people walk away from these properties for all kinds of different reasons. There can be a divorce situation. There can be a job relocation, a death or an illness in the family. So you get some of the greatest don't-want-her properties because they walk away from them. And they're usually vacant, which is good, because when they're vacant, you get these deeply discounted properties. And when they're vacant, you don't have to do evictions. I like that part. They can be anything. They can be single-family residences. They can be condos, townhomes, apartment buildings, commercial buildings, anything that is no longer wanted by its owners and not producing any income for that owner. Now, that owner is probably experiencing a lot of pressure from the neighbors because the neighbors are upset with him. They wanted to fix the property up because it's bringing their property values down. But here I think is the greatest attribute of the abandoned property system. You're looking at it as very little competition. And so you can quietly work this system, make very large amounts of money, and you kind of keep it to yourself because there's very little competition. Over the years that I've been working abandoned properties, there's still very little competition. So I want to show you a few pictures. I'll kind of give you an idea what these properties look like. You're looking at 8723 South Bering Cross. You can see that the windows are boarded up, the door is boarded up. The grass would be overgrown, but it's dead. It can't grow anymore. I want you to see this next one. This is 6923 South Estrella. By the overgrowth in vegetation, you can tell that this has been abandoned for a while, but can you tell that this is actually a 5-unit apartment building? You can hardly tell that. And you know, you would love to own this property right now because it's a very strong producer. It kicks out a lot of cash, but the average person walks right past it, drives right past it. They don't see it, and if they do see it, they don't understand. Why doesn't that owner do something about that? Well, let's get out of here, Margaret, and then they take off. So now, how do you find these properties? When my wife and I first started, we would drive up one street and down the other. I call it driving for dollars or chasing abandoned properties. And we would jot down the addresses of properties that we might find that looked abandoned. Then we would go back to our office in our home, and we would start to process the information. Here's processing. This is the info that you're going to need. You're going to need the owner of record, the mailing address, the number of bedrooms, the number of baths, the square footage, lot size. Zoning would be very helpful, but you also need comparable sales. You need to be able to determine how much that property is worth before you buy it, and then how much it's worth after you fix it up. And that way you can get a good gauge on how much money you're going to make. That's very, very important. And what we do is all of our abandoned property students, we arm you with the proper tools, all the tools that you need in order to get the job done, including comparable sales, and we arm you with those absolutely free of charge, absolutely free. We want you to be successful. We want you to build yourself an abandoned property money machine that will take care of you and your family for the rest of your life. Now, you can make a lot of money by chasing abandons the way that my wife and I first started, but you see, I want you to put it on automatic pilot, and I want you to make a lot of money easy. And the way you do that is by building that abandoned property machine. The way you build a machine is, first of all, by getting the deals chasing you rather than you chasing the deals. And there's a million different ways to do it. I'll share one with you right now. Let's say you want to run an ad in a newspaper. You got a $400 advertising budget, and you want to attract someone who will, a motivated owner who can bring you a deal that maybe you can make yourself $60,000 on. And so the ad might say, I can buy your distressed property, I can buy it in its present condition, and I can close in 15 days, called Reggie. And so when you run that ad, now what are the chances of someone calling you within the next 10 days or so with a deal that you can make yourself $60,000 on? The chances are very slim. Some people think none, no chance at all. But I want to share with you how just a little fine-tune, a little tweak, how you can much better use your time and your money. Get yourself a couple friends or relatives, whatever. We're going to say everything that we talk about is going to be very, very conservative. You let your couple friends or relatives know about the abandoned property system. You see, I have a form, and I want you to make a lot of copies of it. It's in your home study course. It's called a rehab analysis form. You make a bunch of copies of it, and you give that to your friends or your relatives, the couple people that you have looking for you, and have them fill it out when they find an abandoned property, because it's going to tell you what's going to be what needs to be done with that property. And so you have them take a picture of the building from the front, from the back. You know, it's vacant, so they can usually get around the back. But do not let them do anything illegal or anything unsafe, okay? Also, have them talk to the neighbor to the left, neighbor to the right. Don't forget about the neighbor across the street. Have them ask about that owner and how you can contact that owner. And so you let them know that for every lead you bring me, I'll give you $20 for every lead. And so you send one in one direction, one in the other. Oh, within 1 week, within 10 days, they both come back to you, and each one of them has 10 leads. And so you keep your promise, $10 or $20 per lead, so you give one $200 and the other $200. And what do you have? You have 20 good, strong, abandoned property leads with the forms filled out, with the pictures taken. They've already talked to the neighbors, may even have a line on where that owner is, and then you go to work. And what was your investment for those 20 good, strong leads? Your $400 advertising budget. That same $400 that was going to have you handcuffed to a phone that would never, never ring. You see, this is a much better use of your time and your money. You're also doing something else that's really, really good. You see, there's a lot of people that need extra money. And so what you just did, you just helped a couple of families, didn't you? You gave each family $200. That can help put cornflakes on the table. That can help to put lunch money in their kids' pockets. And so the next month, they're going to be right there wondering if they can find more abandoned properties for you. So you set up this type of machine, and your machine can take care of you and your family for the rest of your life. And you know, my daughter, when my wife and I first started, my daughter was 17 years old, and she was so excited because we were making so much money, and she wanted to learn how to make that money also with abandoned properties. So I told her, we both told her, that we're going to teach you what you need to know. We're going to give you all the tools that you need to become a millionaire. All you have to do is to follow what we tell you, follow right alongside of us, and the deal that we do as you're working on with us, we'll cut you in on part of the profit. And so she goes out. We taught her how to find them. She goes out and she finds this 4-unit building right here, 8633 South Orchard Avenue. Beautiful building, except that it had some problems in it. There was some fire damage in one of the units, and the other 3 units weren't bad at all. So we went in, we wrote up everything that needed to be done, taught her how to do that. We looked at the fire damage units, and the other 3 units weren't bad at all. The other 3 units were just carpet, paint, and minor repairs. So I taught her how to find them. I taught her how to find that owner. The owner let us in, so we were able to see the unit. Now we're going to take her back to our office in our home, and it's time to teach her to write up the contract. Very important to teach her how to write up the contract correctly. There was a clause that I shared with her, and I taught her this clause. It's called the fire clause. And it made us a lump sum of cash over and above the profit that we had already anticipated. I want you to write down this clause because I want you to use it in any deal that you're doing that has fire damage to it. This clause can make you a lot of money. It goes like that. This offer is subject to the seller assigning to the buyer the insurance settlement. Just that one little clause. This offer is subject to the seller assigning to the buyer the insurance settlement. Now, how did I know that there was an insurance settlement? Well, I didn't know. What I did know is that if you have a mortgage on a property, you have to have fire insurance. And there was fire damage, but the work had not yet been done. That meant that there's possibly a check floating around someplace, and that clause was designed to get my hands on that check. I want to share with you the numbers on this property now. You're going to see the outcome of this little clause that we did right here. Here are the numbers on this 4-unit building in Los Angeles, California. We settled on a purchase price of $172,000. Now, when we closed on this property, there were checks waiting for us. One of of those checks was the insurance assignment. You're looking at it now. $47,235 and some change. And I want you to know the important thing was that this was for one unit. This was for just the one fire damage unit, over $47,000. Now, why did we get that money? It was free money. Why did we get that free money? The answer is because we learned to ask for it. If you don't learn to ask for things in life, you'll never get anything in life. And the way that we ask for things in real estate as investors is through clauses in our contracts. And I have a contract, the most powerful contract you've ever seen in your life, because it has 19 of these money-making clauses all embedded in the contract. So you don't have to try to remember what all the clauses are. All you do is use the contract, and you don't just have to use it for an abandoned property deal. You use it for anything you're working on. So let's say you're filling out the contract. You're sitting at the table with the owner, and you slide the contract over to the owner, and the owner goes through it, and he finds a clause he doesn't like. Do you think he's going to kill the deal? No, he's not going to kill the deal. He simply draws a line through the clause that he doesn't like. But you don't sweat it because you got 18 more, and you're going to make your money going in and also coming out of this deal. So let's move on. So now that brought our effective purchase price down to $125,000. Now you heard me talk about the importance of learning how to do your fix-up work correctly. See, the average person would have spent twice what we spent. We spent less than $24,000 to do all the fix-up work on this building, but not just for one unit, for all 4 units. All 4 units, we spent less than $24,000. The average person would have spent over $50,000. I'll show you in a few minutes how we keep our money in our pocket when we do our fix-up work. And so less than $24,000 for the whole thing. And so that brought our effective cost, or our total cost, to $149,000. We kept the building for a while. We rented it out. When we sold it for $293,000. And here's our profit. We made ourselves a little over $140,000 on that one 4-unit abandoned building, a building that everybody else walked right past and drove right past. They didn't see the value in it. But let me tell you, there's gold in our hills, as they used to say. There's plenty of value in these abandoned properties. But you're wondering, what about my daughter? Well, I'm glad you asked. You know, remember, we told her that we're going to arm her with all the tools that she needed, and we're also going to cut her in on part of the profit. When we closed on this deal, there were checks waiting for us, and one of those checks was for my little girl with her little name on it. She made herself $10,000 that day, and she was only 17 years old, and she made herself $10,000. Can you imagine how that felt? She was a shy little girl, very, very shy. But you know, that all changed. When she made that $10,000, I watched her. She transformed into a much, much more confident person. She walked with pep in her step. She'd throw her shoulders back. She even changed the way she talked a little bit. And I watched her transform, and it was the most wonderful, wonderful thing. And that's when my wife and I, we realized that we're really onto something here, because we taught our daughter. And now our daughter doesn't have to be a slave to the corporate world. Because, see, we discussed this. We have a responsibility to enable our kids, to put them in a position to be able to out-earn what we did. But how are we going to do that when in the schools they're not even teaching our kids how to balance the checkbook? How are they going to be ready for this crazy, mixed-up financial world that we're going to be leaving for them? They're not going to be ready. So what I did, and what I would love for you to do, is to learn a simple system like the abandoned property system, and then teach your kids and give them a chance at financial independence as well, just like we did ours. And so it just becomes very, very important that we take the responsibility to teach our kids what they need to know for the future, for their futures. All right, I'm off my soapbox now. Let's go back to teaching. I want to teach you about the reason why investors leave a lot of money on the table is because they don't really understand how to write up the contracts and the clauses that they should use. And I want to share a couple of clauses with you right now that you can use in your contracts that can help you to make even more money. And I'll share that with you right now. The first one I want to tell you about is a substitution of collateral. I'll tell you what. I'm going to read it first, and then I'll tell you how it's used, or how we've used it. It says, the maker reserves the right to substitute collateral for this note at any time during the term. Beneficiary or assignee to approve, but shall not unreasonably withhold approval. Let's say you find yourself a nice little abandoned property. And we know that these abandoned properties lend themselves so well to owner financing because the banks are not lending on those kinds of properties right now. And so the owner agrees to finance the property. He agrees 100% financing, and you put this little clause in the contract. The owner signs the contract. Now, you have that property sitting there. You own that property. The owner is financing it with the substitution of collateral clause in the contract. Now, you go and find yourself another abandoned property, and you write up the contract, but this owner does not want to own or finance. He says, go get me some money, son. And so now you got to figure out where to get your money. This is where most investors get stuck. They can't figure out how to get their money out of their properties to continue investing, so they get stuck right there. You arm yourself with the proper tools and the proper knowledge of how to use those tools, and you will not get stuck. Here's what you do. You go back to that first property that you have the substitution of collateral clause in the contract. You see, this clause allows you to lift that lien off that property and put it on something else, thus freeing up the equity in that property. Now you can easily go and refinance that property, pull out all the money that you need, and continue your investing. Now, when you lift the lien off the property, do you have to put it into real estate? And the answer to that is no. It doesn't have to go back on real estate. It can. It can go on a house. It can go on a commercial building. You can even go on a vacant lot. But it doesn't have to be real estate. You can put that lien against a boat or a car or fur coat or anything that the owner feels is valuable enough to secure his position. And so, therefore, you can continue to invest. The average person that doesn't know these little clauses puts themselves in a position where they get stuck and their investment career becomes in jeopardy. So I hope you wrote that down. I want to share another one with you right now. We know that when you go to get a loan to buy a property, the lender's going to make his money based on points and interest, and the interest is going to make him rich. So he really wants you to carry that loan as long as you can. If he could talk you into 50 years, he'd do it, because you're going to make him rich with interest over time. But no, not you. You're too smart for that. You go out and you hit yourself a home run with an abandoned property. You come back to that lender and you pay off that loan. The lender gets mad at you because you're taking away all of his interest now, and so he's going to charge you something, and it's called a prepayment penalty. And it can be thousands and thousands of dollars, but no, that's not us. In our contract, we have a prepayment, a discount clause. And so we're not going to pay a prepayment penalty. We're going to get ourselves a prepayment discount. And here's how it goes. This is the clause. In the event that this note is paid in full during the first blank number of years of its term, and we'll choose 5 years of its term for purposes of example, for this example, the maker shall be entitled to a blank % discount from the remaining balance. And we're going to choose a 15% discount from the remaining balance. Okay, so now you find yourself a nice little property, a nice little abandoned property, and you pay $200,000. You get it with owner financing. The owner finances 100%. And so now you're going to sell that property and make yourself a little money. It's a good deal. That's why you got into it. And so it's going to give you about a $60,000 profit, let's say. But now once you sell that property, that clause in your contract allows you to discount the payment to the owner by 15%. You're going to, once you sell that property for $270,000, you make yourself, say, $60,000, and that $200,000 note that was carried by the owner gets paid off minus 15%. So you just made yourself an additional $30,000 when you sell the property. Not only do you make the 60 up front, you make the 30 on the back end as well, just because you have that prepayment discount clause in the contract. I'm telling you, it makes sense to sit down and learn these clauses, or to sit down and invest in my abandoned property system where the clauses were already in the contract. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. There are 2 versions of the contract in your home study course. One version is to make a lot of copies of it and get that out into the world and get that to owners, because that's how you make your money. The other version, you're looking at it right now. This one is for your education. At the top of it, it says standard real estate purchase contract and receipt for deposit. Well, there's nothing standard about this contract. Let me explain. Along the left column, you see numbers that correspond to each of those paragraphs. And let's say you're filling out the contract, and you get down to a point where, let's say, number 5. You don't really understand what to put there. It says additional financing terms are as follows, and then there's 3 lines. You don't know what to put there. So you don't sweat it. You just flip a few more pages to the explanation section in your manual. This is in the Insider Secrets to Big Profits. Now here's a page out of the explanation section, And so you just find the number of the paragraph that corresponds with the paragraph that you want information on. And there it is, number 5. And it tells you exactly what to do. It says use this area to describe any other financing terms, such as seller to carry a second mortgage of dollars or buyer to purchase property subject to a first mortgage of blank number of dollars. And so as you're using the contract, you're learning about the clauses, you're making money with these clauses, and you're also learning about the clauses. And that is the very best way to earn while you learn, basically. And that's what we're talking about. So I want to share with you what my daughter's doing these days. See, she's a pretty little girl, and I don't want her going to the war zones, you know, where you have to duck and dodge bullets and wear a flak jacket and a helmet. I don't want that. So what she does, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most affluent area you can think of, she works the 7, 7.5, 8, and 8.5 areas. And she does a very good job. And so the reason I'm explaining that to you is so that you know you don't have to go into Iraq or Afghanistan to find these kinds of properties. You can go to the more affluent areas. Now, when you go to the more affluent areas, you're going to find fewer abandoned properties, but the profits are going to be pretty significant. When you go to the less affluent areas, like the 3, the 4, the 5, the 6 areas, you'll find more abandoned properties there, but guess what? About the profits, they're still significant for a couple of reasons. Because of the nature of an abandoned property, because of the mindset of a person that walks away from that property, and also because of what I shared with you at the very beginning, the perfect storm for investing in abandoned properties. Here's a picture of a property that my daughter's done, and this is in about an 8.5 area, very nice area called Windsor Hills, California. She found this little drab rundown house. Somebody had walked away from it because they lost interest in it. She learned a couple things. She learned how to locate the owner. She learned what to say to the owner. I teach you exactly what to do and how to do it with regard to how to find that owner and what to say. You have scripts there, and I want you to go through your scripts because I don't want you to put a deal in jeopardy. When you stand to make $50,000, $75,000, I don't want you to lose out on that deal because you didn't know the right word to say. And so you go through your scripts. She also learned how to prepare the contracts. I teach you how to do that too. You know I'm big on contracts now. She learned how to do a little fix-up work. Well, she actually had her success team doing her fix-up work. And one of the most important things that I teach you in your home study course is how to put together your success team. See, she's on the beach in Hawaii someplace drinking a drink with a little umbrella in it while her success team is putting together her investment. By the time she gets home, it's either done or very soon will be done, and so therefore she makes money and she lives a fantastic lifestyle. I want you to do the same. And so her success team put together the property that you're looking at right now, 4336 West 58th Place, Windsor Hills, California. Nice house. Here are the numbers on this house. She purchased this property for $262,500. She bought it really, really low. And the reason was because the owner lost interest in it. He should have sold it for a lot more than that, but she got it low because he walked away from it. She put a little work into it. She put less than $25,000 into it. The average person would have spent more than $35,000, $40,000, but I'm going to share with you how we do that. And I really want you to pay attention when we get to that segment. And so our total costs on this building were Okay, I'm sure it would be, but that's what she did, and I'm very, very proud of her. You know, when you want to make this kind of money, you have to be careful about your fix-up, and I kept talking about that. You have to change. I want you to change the way you think about fixing up your properties. Most people put way, way too much money into their properties, and they don't take advantage of what I'm about to share with you now. Let's say, here's an example. Let's say we know that if you put linoleum tile or linoleum on the floors and Formica on the countertops when you're doing your fix-up work, if you rent the property out, your tenants may tear up your linoleum and may also burn holes in the Formica. It will be worn very quickly. If you decide to sell the property, you won't get quite as much value with linoleum and Formica as you would if you had ceramic tile. We all know ceramic tile is much better. Tenants can't tear it up as easily and you get more value. But we also know that it's a lot more costly. Let's say you go to a nice tile store. And in the tile store, when you first walk in, you see these beautiful displays of tile, beautiful tile. And that tile is pretty expensive. It's like $6 to $10 a square foot. What I want you to do is to go past that tile and go out to the storage yard. Many of these tile stores are big enough where they have a storage yard in the back. And I want you to ask the guy who runs the storage yard, ask him for your store closeouts. And what he's going to do is point to a big stack of tile, and you go over there and you take a look, and you say, wow, this looks exactly like the tile that was in the big display for $6 to $10 a square foot. But you see they're closing that tile out. In other words, they're not going to order any more of it. So you got to make sure that when you do buy that tile, and I hope you do because it's a tremendous savings, you just make sure that you buy enough. So let's say you're doing a big job. Let's say you've got a big kitchen and maybe 4 bathrooms, and you need 400 square feet of tile. If you were to buy the tile that was on that beautiful display at $10 a square foot, you're going to pay $4,000 for the materials, just for the tile alone. Then you have to buy the other materials. We don't pay any more than 69 to 99 cents a square foot for our tile. And so therefore, we pay 69 cents a square foot for 400 square feet. We just pay less than $300. The average person's paid $4,000. We pay $300 for the same quality tile. They're not chipped. They're just closeouts, and they're not going to be carrying that tile anymore. What do you care? So you go and save the money. How much did you save? You saved yourself over $3,700 on just that one tip. I've got another one for you. Like Jimmy Durante used to say, I got 1,000,000 of them. Here's one. We found this abandoned property needed a new roof. And so, as a result, I called a bunch of contractors, roofing contractors. They all came out, and they gave me an estimate, and the average estimate was $8,200. Ask yourself the question, is that contractor going to pull that ladder off his truck, climb up there on the roof, and do the job himself? No, he's not. He's going to have his workers on the roof doing that job while he goes about his business finding another roof that needs to be repaired. And so the idea is that once they finish that roof, he shifts them right over to the next roof, and then he goes and finds the next one, and the cycle continues. But now what if his workers are done working on this one roof, but he has not found another roof to shift them over to? You see, the workers have families. They got to feed their families, so they have to make money. Where are they going to go to make money? You're looking at it on your screen. Roofing supply house. You see, they know that in the mornings the roofing contractors will come in and to pick up their supplies. And so they'll ask them, they'll say, hey, my name is Reggie. I have my own tools. I have the own knowledge of how roofing systems go, and I also have my own transportation. Have you got any space on your crew? And so they'll get a job. And so that's when I got smart. I went down to the roofing supply house. There were a lot of out-of-work roofers down there. I talked to a bunch of them. 2 of them I really liked. And so we decided that I would pay them $100 a day for every day that we worked on that roof. Nowadays, you might have to pay them a little bit more. This was some time ago. You might have to pay them $125, $130. But I want you to get the principle of what I'm trying to teach you here, okay? Also, in your home study course, you have a book there called The Insider Secrets to Big Profits. When I was down at this roofing supply house, I picked up all of my materials, and I picked them all up at wholesale. Cost me less than $700. And the ideas that I use to buy at wholesale rather than retail are all right there in the Insider Secrets of Big Profits. You see, I realized something. The average consumer, everything that they buy it at retail or above, but not us investors. Us investors, everything we buy is at wholesale or below. So my materials were less than $700. It took us 2 days to put that roof together. 2 days times $700 times $100 a piece, times 2 people. My labor costs were $400. It cost me $1,100 to put that roof on when the average person would have spent $8,200. What did we just save? Another $7,100. And so if you're in your next deal, if you just use those 2 little simple ideas that I just gave you, you'd make $10,000 more than you would have made. And those were very simple ideas. Anybody can do those ideas that I just gave you. Anybody can do them. And so next time you don't just use those 2, you throw 2 more in there. Use 4 of these ideas, and you see your profits soar. If you've ever read my bio, you know that I specialize in taking the mediocre deals, $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 deals, and kicking them up to $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. Well, that's one of the ways that we do that, by watching how we spend our money. Okay, so you now know that you can make a tremendous amount of money with abandoned properties, and you can do it with owner financing many times, and so therefore you don't need money, credit, nor job, and you can do it with very, very little competition. The money's already big, but I want to share with you how we can make it even bigger by taking on the largest financial partner in the entire world, and I'm sure you know who it is. It's the federal government. United States government. You see, we know about government grants. We've always heard about them, but I want to introduce you to a few other ways to get grants. There are corporation grants, there are public foundation grants, there are private foundation grants, and there are agency grants. And wouldn't it be great if we had access to those grants as well as the government grants? Well, many of you will have access to those because here it is. We put together the National Grant Guide. And in the National Grant Guide, the reason why we put it together was because we wanted our students to have additional methods or additional pathways to the grants, not just government grants, but additional pathways to the other grants as well. And here you'll find business grants, business assistance programs. You'll find venture capital money. You'll find foundation grants, corporation grants, health care grants, personal needs grants. I found a grant in there to get your bad teeth fixed. Now we sat down with a lady. We had this lady dial every phone number that was in here. And it's full of phone numbers. The numbers that worked, we kept them in. The numbers that didn't work, we threw them out. But the ones that did work, we kept them in along with the contact names. And so this becomes a very important tool in you building your abandoned property money machine that will take care of you and your family for the rest of your lives. You know, you can get state and federal grants for developing. And the reason is because you're going to develop in the targeted areas, the empowerment zones, and the enterprise areas. That's where we keep America strong by addressing the needs of the weakest links within us. And so once those areas have been labeled with those targeted areas, empowerment zone labels, then the money becomes available. And so therefore you can actually do developing in those areas because the money is available. You can get funds for substantial rehabilitation, multifamily housing, and urban renewal areas, and this one, so very important. Let's bring it up to the middle. This is multifamily housing consisting of single-room occupancy. It's called the SRO program. I want to take a moment and tell you about this, one of the greatest programs that America has to offer. You see, our federal government will allow us to take a multifamily dwelling and chop it all up and make a whole bunch of little bedrooms. And they'll even let us take the kitchen and the bath and relocate them to an area where all the bedrooms have access. So let's say we have a 5-unit apartment building, and they're all one-bedroom units. So we have a living room, a dining room, a kitchen, a bedroom, and a bath. And let's say that each of these units is, say, 750 square feet. If the average bedroom, 10 by 12, is 120 square feet, how many 120 square foot bedrooms can we get in a 750 square foot unit? Well, we can get 6. But once again, we're going to be very conservative with everything we do. We're not going to just make 5. We're only going to make 4 bedrooms per unit. We could get 6, but we're only going to make 4. Now, in Los Angeles, they allow $678 per month per person, per tenant. So we're going to cut it down to $600 a month just so we can see the numbers, how they add up a lot easier. They'll also allow more than 1 person per bedroom. So even though we have these huge bedrooms, let's only allow 2 people per bedroom, okay? Only 2. So 2 people per bedroom times $600 a month, that means that we're making $1,200 per bedroom. We had 4 bedrooms. We could have had 6, but we only have 4 bedrooms. And so that means that we're making $4,800 a month per unit. How many units did we have? You're right, we had 5 units, didn't we? Doesn't that mean that we're making $24,000 a month on this 5-unit building using the SRO program? That's exactly what it means. When the average person that has a 5-unit building, you know what they're doing? They're struggling, just trying to make $2,000 a month, $2,500 a month if they're lucky. They're struggling. But they don't know the SRO program. So if the government tells you that, well, you got to put in special smoke detectors and you got to put in a special sprinkler system, can you afford to do it? Of course you can. Of course you can. You see, this is the one thing that we love about our free enterprise system and the government programs is that if you will address the needs of the weakest links, the government will help you to get rich. Get rich while you address the needs of the weakest links. And now I'm going to share with you the purpose of this program. Do you think that maybe the homeless situation in America qualifies as a weak link in America? That's what this program is all about. It's designed to get the homeless people off the street. So if you will use the program for the purpose intended, not only will you be keeping America strong, doing your part, you'll also be helping the weakest links in America to stay strong, and so therefore America stays strong. So you might even look at it as your patriotic duty to use these programs make the money, and help the people that need your help. And that's what this is all about. Government programs are wonderful. I want to share with you a little bit about Thomas Stills. Thomas was one of my students. Came to a live seminar with me once, and he got so excited, and he rushed to the back, and he invested in the abandoned property system. And then he rushed out there, and he did everything haphazardly, and he made a whole bunch of mistakes. You're looking at his very first property that he did. This one was 1722 West 110th Place in L.A. He did a decent job at it. Actually, he did a way too good a job at it. He way overspent. He made himself a little over $21,000, but Thomas left $80,000 on the table. So he called me and he told me about his mistakes. And he says, Reg, I think I need you. And I said, yes, I think you do too. So we began to work together. And so in his very first year, this all happened in his very first year, he corrected on the second deal. He corrected on maybe half the mistakes that he made. He found this little property here at 10120 Colima Road. And so on this one, he made himself a little over $75,000. He only corrected about 50% of the mistakes that he made, and he made himself a lot more money. So now it's exciting. Thomas is armed and dangerous now. He's headed in the right direction. And so the third and final deal that he did in his first year investing with the abandoned property system, Thomas corrected about 90% of the mistakes that he made. He found this property here, 4469 West 62nd Street, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house that had been abandoned year after year after year. Everybody walked right past it, and he did everything, just about everything right, and he made himself a little over $135,000. So let's summarize Thomas's first year. In his very first year, Thomas made himself a little over $225,000. But here's what you don't know. Thomas did this in his spare time because Thomas was working a full-time job when he did this. What are you doing with your spare time? That's the question. Most people, they channel surf in their spare time, watch TV. And I'll submit to you this, that if you have financial dreams, goals, and aspirations that are not yet met, and you're watching television, you're wasting your time. So I compel you, turn the TV off. And don't turn it on again until you go out there and make a bundle of money with the abandoned property system. Now they got new 3D TVs. 3D, 60-inch 3D TV. Get yourself one of those, but only after you go out there and make yourself some money with the abandoned property system. And you know, it's a wonderful thing that you can do because now with the fact that the foreclosure market is feeding the abandoned property market, we have more abandoned properties on the market now. We have more owners who own these properties that are hurting now that need money, and they can't figure out how to sell their properties. They know that the banks aren't lending on them. And so now you come along as a knight in shining armor, riding up on your big white horse to solve their problems. And you get paid so very handsomely. That's what I've been doing for, oh man, the last 25 years now. My son and my daughter, they've been doing it for 5 and 7 years, respectively, a daughter and son. I have students that have been doing this for 5 years or so. And we have a track record of success that is just, that I'm very proud of. So we covered a lot of territory. We talked about abandoned properties. I want to do a real quick recap. We talked about how to chase those properties, and we realized that we can make money chasing them, but we can also make a lot more money getting them to chase us, because that way we can build out the abandoned property machine. But we didn't have a chance to talk about some of the other ways, like the utility companies bringing you good deals. That's a way to get them chasing you. Or the U.S. Postal Service bringing you good deals. We didn't have a chance to talk about that. So we also talked about how to target the right areas so that you don't spin your wheels in the wrong areas. You see, I don't want you spinning your wheels because I don't want you to get frustrated and think it doesn't work. And so the first thing that I want you to do, after you listen to your CD that I'll tell you about in a little bit, I want you to pick up the book that says Creating Wealth with Abandoned Properties. And I want you to learn how to target the correct areas first. And then when you do that, you flip to page 21 and read what I say under Teen Power. Do what I tell you under Teen Power. You will have a stack of abandoned properties on your desk, a choke a horse, and then you go to work. All right, now I want to teach you also how to get loads of abandoned properties so that you can build that money machine, but you get them chasing you on a regular basis, on an automatic basis, and so I'll teach you that as well. So we talked a little bit about finding the owners, and we said that it's easy to talk to the neighbors because we know that that owner, when he left, he probably left his contact information with somebody there because he wants to be warned if his building burns down, he wants to know about it. And so it's easy to talk to the neighbors. But we didn't have a chance to talk about another little technique that I want to share with you right now, and it's called your secret weapon. Let's say you find an abandoned property, and you do your research, and it's all documented of exactly how to do the research in the public record, and you find that the owner of record, his mailing address is the same as the abandoned property address. You know he doesn't live there because it's abandoned. Most people stop right there, and they go on to find another property. No, I'm going to give you tools that you're going to be able to use to get past the obstacles that stop most people. Here's a simple thing that I want you to do. You address an envelope to that abandoned property. Make sure that your return information is at the top left. Now, you mail that envelope, and you know it's not going to get in the hands of the owner because the owner doesn't live there. But you see it's going to come back to you with some valuable information because before you mail it, you write these words down at the bottom right. Return service requested, do not forward. Return service requested, do not forward. Here's what usually happens. That piece of mail hits the post office. The post office realizes that the owner no longer lives there. They look up his new address. They write it on the envelope, and then they return it to the sender. That's you. And so now you have that owner's new address. If he's in town, if he's local, you go over there and knock on the door. If he's out of town, you get him on the phone. If you can't get him on the phone, you put him into your mailing campaign. You see, we're not going to have any properties lost in a crack. No way. We are going to process these properties, and we're going to squeeze them for the most amount of profit that we can. Now, I also want to teach you to automate the process of finding these owners, because the first thing I want to teach you is the no-cost methods of finding these owners. That way it doesn't cost you anything. And then we move into the low-cost methods, like, for instance, what I just shared with you, your secret weapon, a stamp on an envelope constitutes low cost. And then we sometimes have to pull out the big guns, and that's why I teach you about skip tracing. Let me give you an example of skip tracing. I was driving down the street one day, and I found a 4-unit abandoned property. I love 4-unit abandoned properties. I jumped out, and I'm standing there in front of it. My cell phone has access to the Internet. So I go online to the public database that I use, and I put in the information in the public record, and I'll pop the mailing address, and the mailing address is the same as the abandoned property address. Once again, we know that happens, and so most people walk away. I then shipped it over to my skip trace database on the Internet, and I put in all the information that the skip trace company needs within 5 minutes. I had that owner of record. I had his new mailing address. He lived in Chicago, and I was in Los Angeles. I had his unlisted telephone number, and I had him on the phone. And I asked him, I said, Mr. So-and-so, I'm standing in front of your property here. I'm just wondering if you're interested in selling it. And he says, well, yeah, I've been thinking about selling it, but how did you get my number? It's unlisted. So I had to take the next 8 to 10 minutes to explain to him how I got his phone number. But as a result, I made a lot of money on that deal. And so when you have the tools that other people don't have, you can do the deals that other people can't do. You can make the money that other people can't make, and that's pretty obvious. So I want to share with you a little bit more of what you're going to learn. I want to teach you over 50 different sources to finance your abandoned property deal. The average person, you know what they know? They know 3. They know FHA, VA, and conventional, but you'll have over 50 sources. I want to give you a bushel basket of unconventional ways to find profitable deals. How about this one, how to create tenant-free income? Most people think that you got to be on the hook for tenant income. You got to be liable. I want to teach you where you never unstop another nasty toilet, you never fix another broken window, you never fix another leaky faucet. Yet all of the cash, all the profit comes to you. It's a very simple thing. I'll teach you how to do that. What to say to an owner and how to say it is so very important, because once again, I don't want you to lose in deals because you didn't know what to say. And so I want you to go through your scripts and understand exactly what to say and how to say it. And it's very easy. How to make a fortune using garbage collectors and mail carriers and ice cream vendors. I have a student in Florida that just does one of these things, and he gets over 55 abandoned properties every single month. How to use the Internet to make money with bargain properties. I'll show you some techniques that we use to identify these properties using the Internet from the comfort of your home. You don't even have to leave home yet. How to easily fix bad credit and expand good credit. I'll tell you why this is important. If you're working abandoned properties, I want you doing owner financing. That way you don't need money, credit, or a job. But you're active, and as you're active, the larger deals are bound to fall in your lap. So when they do, I want you to be ready for them. If your credit is bad, I want to show you how to fix it. If your credit is good, I want to show you how to expand it. That way when the bigger deals fall in your lap, you'll use your credit as a lever or leverage to get into those larger deals. Now, also, I want to teach you how to put your success team together. And so that way, you work without getting your hands dirty. I don't want your hands to get dirty. I want you to enjoy the kind of lifestyle that you want to enjoy. If you want to get your hands dirty, fine. But you still need to put together your success team. And I'll show you very, very simple ways of how to do that. This is so exciting. How to write an irresistible purchase agreement. The reason why we get our purchase agreements accepted is because we know a few things. We know a few scientific things. We know how to gauge the owner's hot buttons, and we also know how to incorporate what that owner needs into an offer, and we also offer multiple offers. We give that owner more than one offer, and each one has solutions to its problems, and so therefore we get our purchase agreements accepted. How to make a fortune with abandoned property absentee owners, and this is so much fun. Absentee owners are people who don't live in the same city as the property, who don't live in the same property. And many of these absentee owners live out of state. And so it's really great taking pictures of the properties from all the worst angles, shooting those out to the owner who happens to live out of state, and doing deals with absentee owners is just fantastic. I love dealing with absentee owners. How to overcome the enemy, which is fear. I'm the only person that I know that will take the time and show you how to take fear and change it from an enemy into an asset. I will show you how to use your fear to help you to get to your financial goals. You'll get there quicker by using your fear the way that I'm going to teach you how to use it. And then how to develop your abandoned property money machine. And that's what this is all about. That's what we've been talking about. You're not going to be left behind because in every one of my home study courses, all of my contact information is in each course. And so what I want you to do is if you have any questions about abandoned properties, I want you to get hold of me. I will support those questions as long as you need me for the rest of your life. And if you can figure out how to get hold of me after that, I'll support you even then. And your questions will be answered. Now, here's something that I want to share with you. We always keep our fingers on the pulse of our students to gauge how well they're doing with abandoned properties. And so a little while ago, I found that the students were slowing down just a little bit. So that's why I went into the studio and I recorded another CD that I call the Quick Start to Success CD. And this is where I'm going to keep you moving towards your goals. I'm going to hold you by the hand and lead you down your path to success. I'm going to point out the potholes, and I'm going to then sit you down and share with you why we stepped around those potholes the way we did. And so therefore it becomes very important that you have some mechanism for me to hold your hand through the rough spots. And that's very important. If you need financing, I'm going to take all the risk out of this. You see, you should be getting owner financing. If for some reason you can't get owner financing and you need financing, I want you to do a few things. I want you to do your homework. You see, this course is written on an 8th grade level, and it's very easy to understand. I want you to use my contract with the 19 money-making clauses, put it under contract, fax it all to me. If the deal shows profit, then we will help you to get the funding. We're not going to let you lose a deal in a crack because you can't get funding. So we're going to help you to do that. All the risk comes out. You know, if you're not making money right now in this market, it's not because of a lack of opportunity. It's because you're not finding the opportunities, and that's why I think you should be working my abandoned property system. I want to share with you 3 legs of the money machine that I've created that I call the abandoned property system. And I'll start with this one. The first is creating wealth with abandoned properties. This is where I teach you how to get a steady inflow of these properties and where you get them chasing you rather than you chasing them. So with a steady inflow, it's easy for you to build your money machine. I want to teach you how to use other people's energy to create cash flow. Many people come up to me and say, Reggie, I'd love to quit my job like you. How do I do that? Well, you're looking at one of the ways. I would teach you how to use other people's energy to create the cash flow that they need and also the cash flow that you need on a regular basis. And you do that a few times. You will be amazed at how quickly you can get to financial independence. And other people will be very happy with the additional money that they're making as well. How to locate the hard-to-find owners. You know, this is so important because when you have the tools that you need to find owners that someone else was looking for, but they just dropped out, they stopped looking because they didn't have any tools to go further. You have tools to go further than anyone else. You find those owners, they are sitting there ripe, ready to be contacted, but they're just a little elusive, and I teach you how to find those hard-to-find owners. Your effective mailing system. You know, Gary Hoskins found an abandoned property, but the owner lived in Alaska. So in his mailing campaign, he sent out the first letter and didn't get a response, and we knew that would happen. Gary did exactly what I taught him. He sent the exact next letter out, the one that I wanted him to send, and he waited the right interval The second letter that he sent out, the owner contacted him. Gary made himself $63,000. See, in your mailing campaign, you have 10 letters. They're all written differently, and they're all written to encourage the owner to call you. And when the owner calls you, you do a deal. So let's say that owner calls you and he says, yeah, I want to sell this property. How much money are you going to give me? How much down payment and all that? And your stomach starts to get queasy because you know you don't have any money. But you don't worry about that. You just flip to the section called Creative Financing Techniques. It's a thick section. You do what I shared with you under Creative Financing Techniques, and I will show you how to put that deal together creatively where you don't need to have the money. And then I want to take you through fix-up. Fixing up to increase your profits is so very important. If you follow the program and you follow the techniques and the tips that I give you on fixing up your property, you get to your financial goals an awful lot faster. Awful lot faster. There's your cover. Creating Wealth with Abandoned Properties comes with a set of 6 CDs, and I encourage you to turn your car into a learning center, and it'll work for you. Here's the second gear in your money machine. This is the insider secrets to big profits. You see, we wrote this one because we realize that most people think that successful investors make their money by buying low and selling high. Sure, we make a lot of money that way. But I wanted to give us an additional way to make money. And so with the insider secrets to big profits, we're always looking for methods and techniques and just different ways of minimizing expenses and maximizing profits. And so you get all the good deals chasing you. I'm also going to show you how to make $5,000 to $10,000 and even more than that at closing. You get paid to buy the property. I'll show you how to do that as well. Big profits using the internet. I have students all over America and also into Canada that are setting themselves up for the rest of their lives using the internet right now. And I'll show you how to do that as well. Buying profitable properties from the government. I'll give you websites that most people don't know anything about. And so you go to those websites, you don't find a property today, check it tomorrow. There may be a good property tomorrow. You buy it right online, and it can be a very profitable deal. Profitable foreclosure investing. We're in a heavy, heavy foreclosure market right now. May as well learn how to do it from home. There's your cover, Insider Secrets to Big Profits. And it comes also with a set of 6 CDs, and you turn your car into a learning center. Here's your third and final gear in your money machine. Free money from the government for real estate. Let's say you find yourself an abandoned property and it needs, maybe a $40,000 fix-up, big fix-up. And after you do that $40,000 rehab, that's left you with a little insignificant profit of $10,000, hardly worth your efforts, unless we get someone else to do the rehab for us. Let's go to government, get a low interest rate loan, get a subsidy, or better yet, let them give you a grant. All of a sudden, they do the work. Your $10,000 profit just soars to $50,000. You're helping to keep America strong by using the programs that address the needs of the weakest links. You're getting rich while you help other people who need your help. There's no better way to get rich in America than to help other people who need your help. Now, I want to share with you how you can get abandoned property system absolutely free of charge. Absolutely free, and I'd love for you to do this. Most of my students will do a deal within 2 months. I'm going to give you 6 months to do a deal. Within 6 months, you can do 3 deals, but just do 1. And here's some things I want you to fax my office. Your closing statement, a copy of your check, and I want you to do a little write-up on how you did the deal. And if you will do that for me, you have 6 whole months to do 1 little deal. I will write a check for every dime that you invest in the abandoned property system. I will write a check and mail it to you. You will get the abandoned property system absolutely free of charge, and you get to keep the home study system as well. You get to keep it, okay? So get your abandoned property system free. I'm going to kick you in the butt and get you off the couch by bribing you with all of your money back when you do a deal within 6 months. Let's talk about your investment in the abandoned property system. Starting with this one, Creating Wealth with Abandoned Properties with a set of 6 CDs is $8.95. The Insider Secrets of Big Profits with a set of 6 CDs is also $8.95. And then your free money from the government for real estate, worth its weight in platinum, and it's only $3.95. Now, we put together some other tools, and these tools are designed to work with the abandoned property system and make the abandoned property system even more robust, get you to your financial goals even faster. And we talked about this one already. This is a National Grants Guide. This is where you have your business grants and business assistance programs with the phone numbers and all of that. Now, you're in business. If you're in real estate, you're in business, so these business grants are for you, and that's $3.95. Your Quick Start to Success audio CD. I want you to listen to this before you do anything else, and that's $179. Your forms desk, every form that you need to be successful with abandoned properties is $249. And so therefore your total is $3,008. $3,008.